It's the turn of the century, and I have the coolest job in the world. I manage a GameStop. And when I get the keys, my store is number 117 out of 120. 6 months later, we are number 3 out of 120. That means I've taken a lot of time away from my family, and every day that I have off is precious. So Tuesdays roll around, and it's my day. All the children are at school, and every now and then maybe I'll give my wife a 10-second head start and I'll chase her around, because there's nobody home. On this particular Tuesday, the phone rings. It's 10:15, and I'm thinking nothing good happens at 10:15 in the morning. The caller ID says Central Denison Elementary School. It's the educational institution that has all 5 of my babies in it. I answer, "Mr. May, would you please come down here immediately?" Now, we only live 6 blocks away, so I can't really get to the fastest velocity that I can, but I do make it fast enough so I squeal into the parking lot and make some noise. The principal, Mrs. Pollock, is standing there with her arms crossed, tapping her little foot. She is of Nordic descent and likewise is also quite cold. She escorts me into the principal's office and says, "Mr. May, it's Madeline." Now, let me tell you something about Madeline. Madeline is here. And not only is Madeline here, she is my second child, my oldest daughter. She is a pint-sized force of nature. So when she says Madeline's done something, I am curious and horrified at the same time. And what comes out of Mrs. Pollock's mouth is, "Madeline tied Michael to the tetherball pole." And I realize it's not the time or place for me to tell Mrs. Pollock that at some point in life, Michael will probably be greatly appreciative of this experience and will pay great money for it. I hold my peace and I keep my thoughts to myself. Mrs. Pollock says, "So Madeline, what do you have to say for yourself?" And Madeline looks up at me with these baby seal eyes and says, "Daddy, it's not what it sounds like." "But you tied Michael to the tetherball pole." "Daddy, it's not what it sounds like." "Well, Madeline, why don't you have something to say for yourself?" And I say to Mrs. Pollock, "I'll handle it from here." So she leaves. She leaves her office, and it's just me and Maddie in the office. "Madeline, you tied this guy to a tetherball pole." "Yeah, Dad, we were playing superheroes." "And you were Wonder Woman using the lasso of truth?" She says, "No, Dad. I was Raven from Teen Titans." And that's when it hits me. It hits me really hard that I am an unindicted co-conspirator in all of this. You see, I am a huge comic book geek, and in my basement I have thousands of comic books, and on every Saturday we watch Teen Titans, Justice League, Batman the Animated Series. This is all my fault. So from the back of my head, a plan comes in, and I say, "Maddie, she's gonna come through that door in just a minute. Follow my lead." "Madeline, you will never ever do that again." And Madeline looks up at me with terror in her eyes, and water's starting to brim up at the bottom of her eyelids. And Mrs. Pollock walks through the door. "Oh, I see you're disciplining your daughter." "Why, yes, I am." "Madeline, you will never ever do this again." I promise. "Well, Mrs. Pollock, I've got this on lockdown. I'm going to take Madeline out of school for the rest of the day so she can think about the consequences of her actions." Madeline looks at me, really? Really? Shh. Got this. Madeline and I walk up to her classroom, gather her things, and then we walk out. And I mumble to her, Madeline, never again. Mrs. Pollock's over my shoulder. Never again. Well, that's when Mrs. Pollock says, well, tomorrow we look forward to having Madeline back as a changed girl. Right. We get out of the school, walk over to my car, which is out of sight of everybody we know and all the cameras as well. Madeline bumps fists with me and says, hey, Dad, you think ice cream's a good idea right now? And I say to my beloved daughter, Madeline, Tuesday's a good time for ice cream for anybody. Thank you.